A black woman withdrew her life savings, determined to live like a wealthy woman in a small city for once. But on her first flight, she faced deliberate harassment from a white passenger in front of her. She initially tried to let it slide, but the man turned the tables on her, claiming she was causing trouble. The flight attendant didn't bother getting the facts straight and asked her to give up some space. Georgia wasn't having any of it. She called out the airline for deliberately cramming seats together just to make more money. The other passengers agreed with her completely. But the flight supervisor couldn't stand passengers like Georgia as economy class travelers who complained too much. He mocked her for being picky when she couldn't afford better, telling her to upgrade to first class if she had the guts.
How much is it?
Beg your pardon?
How much for the damn cocoon?
Right here.
Sure enough, spending more money made all the difference. She was treated to premium food and drinks, and even the flight attendants did a complete 180 in their attitude. Little did anyone know that this wild spending spree would completely change her life. After Georgia finished eating and drinking her fill, she walked out of the airport only to find endless lines for ground transportation. That's when a poster on the wall caught her eye, and she didn't hesitate to book a helicopter ride. This once-in-a-lifetime experience thrilled someone from her humble background. The snow-covered mountain scenery stretched out below her as far as the eye could see. In just half an hour, she landed on the rooftop of her five-star hotel. Though the hotel was full of high society guests, Georgia's flashy arrival had everyone wondering who she really was.
Who is that?
All I know, Senator, is that the last time someone arrived by helicopter, it was Elton John. Sir Elton John.
But the moment she stepped into the lobby, Georgia was stunned. Everywhere she looked, there were Arab oil tycoons and social elites from all walks of life. She even spotted the chairman of the company where she worked, vacationing with his secretary. And there she was, all alone, just an ordinary kitchenware salesperson. Sure, her sales numbers were way ahead of everyone else's, but her salary hadn't budged in 10 years. She never dared hope that her boss would actually deliver on any of his empty promises. She collected her fixed salary every month, carefully using every coupon and discount she could find to save money, all to check items off her personal bucket list. Unfortunately, doctors discovered she had a terminal illness. To rule out any misdiagnosis, she went through a second round of tests and even brought in specialists for consultation. But the final result was exactly the same. The experts told Georgia she had less than 3 weeks to live.
What? Like I'm gonna die?
Even worse news followed. Her insurance wouldn't cover this particular condition. This meant Georgia would have to shoulder hundreds of thousands of dollars in treatment costs all by herself. This devastating news hit her like a bolt from the blue, completely crushing someone who had been frugal and thrifty for half her life. Yet she hadn't accomplished a single dream from her wish list. She'd never visited her favorite travel destinations or tasted the food she'd always wanted to try. She'd even had to piece together her own wedding photos by hand. So Georgia boldly quit on her exploitative boss. She decided to give herself one final vacation. Because she'd taken the helicopter, Georgia arrived at the hotel 2 hours early. The front desk staff told her that her reserved room wasn't ready yet, and the only available room was the presidential suite at $4,000 per night.
Did you see me blink?
She accepted the incredibly attentive service and learned to tip like wealthy people do. But Georgia's generosity completely shocked the bellhop, who had no idea who this mysterious big spender was. The bellhop only dared to accept one bill, and returned all the rest. She then slowly walked to the window and gazed out at the beautiful scenery. Georgia couldn't help but reflect on what kind of life she'd been living all these years, only discovering how to enjoy life when she was about to die. So she began frantically trying out all the exclusive spa treatments that the hotel offered to wealthy guests. She not only used electric shock therapy for skincare and wrinkle removal, but also had hot stone massages with stones bigger than her head, and even got beaten with tree branches as a form of massage. Though she didn't quite understand the logic behind these treatments, she forced herself to experience them all. After indulging in every service available, she got the urge to change up her appearance. So Georgia walked into a high-end women's boutique and had the staff put together a completely new look for her. Premium clothing really does make a difference. Even an ordinary woman can instantly be transformed to look like an international supermodel on the runway. The countless options made Georgia's head spin. Finally, among all the gorgeous outfits scattered around, she chose a relatively understated red evening gown and headed to the hotel restaurant for dinner. Out of her love for good food, she didn't hesitate to order everything on the menu without making any special requests to the chef. In contrast, the wealthy diners nearby seemed incredibly demanding, not only making various special requests, but specifically asking for celebrity chefs to personally prepare their meals. All these strange and difficult demands instantly infuriated the head chef.
No butter, no cream, no whipped, no dairy, no fat. Eh, merde! Why do they bother to eat?
However, when he received George's order, his anger immediately cooled. The chef had never encountered a customer who showed such respect for his dishes, so he made an unprecedented decision to personally cook for this distinguished guest. Moments later, a table full of delicious food was served, with the chef personally attending to her. The two of them hit it off like old friends, enthusiastically discussing their views on fine cuisine. This whole scene was witnessed by the wealthy guests nearby, who began speculating about George's identity. Given the chef's famous reputation, he would never warmly receive an ordinary rich person. What the wealthy guests could never have imagined was that Georgia was actually just a small kitchenware salesperson from his retail conglomerate. Her genuine love for good food had unexpectedly caused the wealthy guests to completely misread the situation. This made a nearby congressman absolutely convinced she was some kind of hidden socialite. So after the dinner, he deliberately approached Georgia, hoping to become friends with her. However, a wealthy businessman who had just finished his shower happened to witness this conversation and couldn't help but suspect she was a hidden competitor sent specifically to sabotage his business partnership with the congressman. So he sent his secretary to investigate Georgia's true identity. The next day, while Georgia was enjoying a massage, the secretary also came to the spa to eavesdrop. But when the masseuse applied too much pressure, the secretary immediately started cursing. Georgia couldn't stand watching this, and as someone from a working-class background herself, immediately stood up for the masseuse.
You got tension in your neck because you keep going down on Mr. Cragen, and he's a married man. At least this poor lady trying to work it out of you. Don't take it out on Brigitte.
The secretary was left speechless by Georgia's confrontation and felt considerable guilt, so she approached Georgia for a heart-to-heart conversation. The young woman said she had no choice. She didn't have any special talents, and could only use her looks to get resources, but she believed the wealthy man would divorce his wife and marry her. Georgia told her not to be naive. To wealthy men, the girl's beauty meant nothing. Rich men could replace their mistresses anytime they wanted. Why waste time on someone who was just using her?
You just need to leave him.
If I leave him, I'll have to quit my job.
Well, then you go back to school.
After this conversation, though Georgia didn't know whether the girl would change her ways, when she returned, she was clearly no longer blindly obedient to the wealthy man. The girl firmly told him that Georgia was just a tourist enjoying her trip, and he should stop making malicious assumptions about others. But this wealthy man just couldn't stand women who stole his spotlight. That very evening, the congressman invited Georgia to dinner again. Though the wealthy man was extremely reluctant, he kept quiet out of respect for the congressman. But then the server came to tell Georgia that the chef had personally prepared a lavish feast just for her. Georgia graciously invited the congressman to join her. This way everyone got to benefit from Georgia's special treatment. Everyone except the wealthy man, who sat alone at his table. Listening to the laughter and conversation from across the room, it was obvious that everyone had been charmed by Georgia's personality. The wealthy man could only swallow his pride, grab a small stool, and invite the congressman to tour his glass factory tomorrow. However, when they learned that Georgia was planning to go wingsuit flying, everyone was drawn to her plans instead.
Well, I hear it's a completely liberating experience.
That is a great idea.
let's
Better
do
than
it.
some glass factory.
The wealthy man, having lost the spotlight again, naturally wasn't pleased. He quickly challenged Georgia, determined to secure his position. But the next day, when both of them were actually standing at the edge, they were both too terrified to move. However, Georgia had already come to terms with life and death. When the instructor gave the signal, she resolutely leaped off the cliff. But when it was the wealthy man's turn, he got cold feet. Despite encouragement from his companions on the mountain, he kept making excuses about unsafe equipment, and even climbed over the barriers to escape. This competition left him thoroughly humiliated. So when he returned to the hotel, he slipped some money to Georgia's sweet butler, asking her to investigate Georgia's background. Then he invited the congressman and Georgia to the casino. Seeing everyone's enthusiasm, Georgia didn't want to be rude and decline. So she said she'd go back to her room first to change clothes. Georgia had accomplished almost everything on her wish list. The only thing missing was being with the person she loved, but there was no time left for that. She could only leave him a farewell letter. What Georgia didn't know was that her boyfriend Sean already knew about her illness. Worried about Georgia's safety, Sean had already set out to find her. Perhaps fate just loves to play tricks on people, and not just with love. Even Georgia, who was dying, was blessed with incredible luck at the casino. On her first bet, she put down all her chips and actually won. From then on, whatever number she picked hit perfectly.
Great. Now you changed my luck for the better?
She couldn't believe heaven was toying with her like this. But the congressmen who followed her bets were thrilled. They all made huge profits. Only the wealthy man who kept betting against her bore all the losses alone. In the end, Georgia alone won $2 million worth of chips. But when she returned to her suite, the usually stern butler suddenly changed her attitude and became very friendly. Georgia was confused, thinking maybe she'd heard about the winnings, and that's why she was acting this way. But then the butler suddenly hugged her, and everything became clear. It turned out that while investigating for the wealthy man, the butler had found Georgia's work ID, and also discovered the farewell letter she'd left behind. Intense guilt washed over her entire body. She confessed everything to Georgia, and begged for her forgiveness. But Georgia didn't blame her at all. In fact, she was happy that a second person now knew her secret. Then the butler asked her whether she should be spending her final days with the person she loved.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that myself. One in particular. It's time I go home and find him.
The next day, Georgia got into a car to head home, but halfway there, an avalanche blocked the road. It seemed like fate's doing again. Heaven had crushed her hope of seeing Sean. What Georgia didn't know was that just behind all that snow, the man she loved was facing the same problem. Because of the avalanche, even more people were trapped at the hotel, and the kitchen staff were overwhelmed. Unexpectedly, Georgia volunteered to help out. Seeing how happily she was cooking, the chef looked melancholy and said he really admired Georgia's optimistic attitude. Georgia immediately realized that the butler had told the chef about her situation.
I'm so sorry.
Let's not say anything, all right? Let's just cook.
The onions, they make me cry.
The chef was also infected by Georgia's attitude, and the two of them thoroughly enjoyed the cooking process together. Soon a lavish New Year's Eve dinner was ready. The chef thanked Georgia for her contributions in front of all the guests. Then she went back to change into an evening gown, and gracefully accepted it all. Even if she couldn't see Sean, she was content missed after all, whose life doesn't have regrets. But just as she returned to the party, the wealthy man stood up again. He had still managed to find out Georgia's identity through his company connections. So in front of all the congressmen, he exposed Georgia as a fraud, pretending to be a socialite when she was really just a kitchenware salesperson making $30,000 a year. But Georgia calmly stood up and admitted that she was indeed just a small employee of the wealthy man's company. The chef tried to stop her from continuing, but the wealthy man interrupted, insisting that Georgia explain everything clearly. And Georgia finally had the chance to publicly share the secret she'd been keeping inside.
I just came here to blow every last cent of my money. You see, I'm gonna die.
Georgia, please.
It's okay, it's okay. It's all right.
Georgia held nothing back as she told them about her illness, and why she'd come here. The only reason she hadn't mentioned it beforehand was because she didn't want to ruin everyone's mood. After Georgia raised a toast to wish everyone well, she turned and left. The wealthy man was scorned by everyone for his actions, and even his beloved secretary finally woke up to reality.
And then I'm gonna go back to school. And then one day, when your wife finally decides to divorce you and takes half of everything you have, I'll only be too happy to help her figure out exactly how much that should be.
The girl ultimately decided to leave him too. At that moment, the wealthy man belatedly realized his mistake. He had done something so despicable to a dying person. Unable to live with the shame, he climbed to the hotel's rooftop and sat alone on the terrace, drinking. Georgia heard about this, and came up, carefully sitting down beside the wealthy man. She told him that with money and time, what could possibly be troubling him so much? As someone who was dying, she could only lament that there wasn't enough time. How unfortunate it would be to leave with regrets.
What were you gonna do? But I was gonna open me up a little restaurant. And of course a husband.
After this conversation, the wealthy man's suicidal thoughts completely disappeared, and he started gossiping about who her boyfriend was. Georgia mentioned that he was also one of his employees, and that she was about to die without ever having confessed her feelings to Sean. Just then, Sean's voice calling her name echoed from the plaza below. Georgia thought her condition was worsening, and she was having auditory hallucinations, but the wealthy man pointed out the man standing down below.
Sean, what are you doing here?
Wait, I'm coming!
It turned out that the avalanche hadn't made him give up his search for Georgia. Despite his driver's attempts to dissuade him, Sean had resolutely decided to cross the snowy mountains on foot. Georgia kept asking why he was there, and Sean finally revealed his true feelings.
Georgia Bird, I want to be with you. Whether it's for 5 minutes here on this ledge, or 50 years.
Faced with her beloved's confession, Georgia excitedly whispered with the wealthy man. But then she remembered her limited time left, and began complaining about heaven's unfairness. Just then, the butler climbed out through the window with good news. The doctor had sent a fax saying that Georgia didn't have a terminal illness after all. It turned out the hospital's equipment had malfunctioned, and anyone tested would have gotten the same diagnosis.
I'm gonna live! Yes!
Heaven had played a huge joke on her, not only giving her back her life, but also bringing the person she loved most to her side. This dream-fulfilling journey had undoubtedly made her the biggest winner of all. Later, they returned to their original city, and she and Sean opened their own restaurant together. On opening day, the chef personally came to help out, and friends came to show their support. Even though Georgia had been misdiagnosed with a terminal illness, when facing what she thought were her final days, she didn't wallow in self-pity. Instead, she embraced this last vacation with an optimistic and positive attitude. Her optimistic spirit touched everyone around her, and ultimately brought her true love as well.